Hello, parents. Welcome to GenX Parenting. Since the day child is born, we take utmost care with the help of pediatricians, with the help of our family doctor, to ensure a physical well being for that baby. We make sure that the child goes to the best of school, ensure best of extracurriculars, so that we can have a bright future for the baby. And in this whole thing, one thing gets missed out, or rather gets diagnosed little later stage. That is the emotional well-being. In today's vlog, we are going to talk about managing emotional wellness or mental well-being for the children. And to do so, we have with us counseling psychologist Ms. Ms. We have already done a beautiful video with her about how to talk about periods with the daughters and about sexual education. The links would be shared in the description, and the period talk link is flashing right now. So do click on it and go through the same. This is a vast topic, and we will try to make it as simple for the parents to understand it. So be patient and watch this video completely. So over to you, ma'am. Let's start with the first question.
Thank you, Leena, and so happy to do this topic with you because it's such an important and much needed topic, and it's something very close to my heart. Obviously, being a therapist myself,
Okay.
so let's get right to it.
Okay. So, first question, that childhood is always considered to be a very carefree or a very happy period of one's life. But we do observe anxiety, we do see depression amongst children. What do you think are the reasons for the same, and why is it happening?
So, Leena, all of us have experienced very recently something very, very unprecedented, and that has been COVID-19. And while many families ended up bonding, ended up, having really good quality time. I remember you sharing that as well, that you had a good quality time with your kids and your family. But it's not the same for everybody. The past 1.5 2 years families have been in close quarters, and children have actually seen what is happening in the family, whether it is issues with family members, extended family, joint family, whether it's with the parents. Children have had a front row seat to what's been going on. And what we are seeing in the mental health field is that all of the underlying dormant issues have become exasperated by the pandemic itself. So, if we were seeing a lot of mental health issues before the pandemic, it has become 10 times more, right? And people have, at least with children, sometimes if a parent has had a history with mental health illness, there is always a chance that the child will suffer from something or the other. So the environment plays a very, very crucial role. And we are seeing a lot of anxiety and depression in children, and at alarming rates, actually. And to complicate things, children are choosing coping strategies that are not desirable at all. So, whether it is substances, whether it is watching inappropriate things on TV or their web series or Netflix, uh, or just simply scrolling. Okay, I know we'll talk about social media a little later, but uh, it has been uh, very overwhelming for the mental health field to cope with this much. And being a professional in a school, I can see myself struggling and my team struggling when it comes to dealing with mental health issues, because even young children, your preschoolers or 6 7 year olds are struggling with coming to school. There are so many separation issues. Mummy, I want to go back to my mummy. I'm missing my mother. वो पहले भी था. But now, because they've been together for so long, that is becoming a huge problem. And parents have really need to figure out how to manage. It's getting very overwhelming because parents are also having to go back to work and not knowing how to cope with their children. So, yes, depression and anxiety showing up at alarming rates. And what we notice sometimes is just simply aggression. Child becomes very aggressive, but we see aggression as उसको गुस्सा आता है, उसके बाप को भी गुस्सा आता है, तो सभी को गुस्सा आता है. It is genetic. But sometimes we forget that one of the symptoms of depression in children is aggression. So we need to be able to figure out, what is happening with our children before it's too late and before we go to another extent.
Okay. So, as you said, I mean, aggression is one symptom because, usually physical issues have symptom. Aapko fever aa gaya, cough, cold hai, and then you go to the doctor. What are the symptoms that parents should observe and, of course, validate when it comes to emotional well-being or emotional problems, I would say?
Okay. So I would say as a parent, you know your child the best. You know their temperament right from the time they were in your arms. You know what the cries mean. So even as they're growing up, we know what their general personality is. If the child is generally a quiet child is not so flamboyant and talks a lot, chatterbox. If you find like suddenly that quiet child becoming aggressive, it's not say ye aisa nahi tha, kya hua hai? That's the right question to ask. Is something happening? So that's any change in behavior. Now we have to know what is baseline behavior for our child. If my child is a shy child and has suddenly become aggressive, I should be alarmed. If my child was a happy-go-lucky, bubbly child and has suddenly become very irritable, very, withdrawn, doesn't want to talk to anybody, we should immediately be alarmed and wonder why this sudden change in behavior. And usually there may be a trigger in the environment, maybe loss, death, divorce, separation, abuse. It could be anything. But very often there may be no trigger at all. And when there is no trigger, environmental trigger, then we have to think about depression. Because we have to understand that depression is very neurochemical. Okay? In the words of Mr. Dutt from the movie MBBS, Munna Bhai, chemical locha imbalance hota hai, right? And depression is very, very treatable. So when we get all of those neurotransmitters in a balance, right? That is where, person starts to feel better with medication and with therapy. But to be able to recognize those signs that if for no reason the child is just behaving out of character, then we should definitely be alarmed.
Okay. As you spoke about the neurotransmitters or the changes, one of the biggest phase wherein a human being undergoes changes is the adolescence. So, because being a transformational phase, and this is the time when every kids become very sensitive and difficult to reach out to. So, what do parents do so that this phase is handled little easily? I wouldn't say like a pro because everybody would be stumbling and learning, but to be handled in a better manner.
Leena, I think what I want to say in favor of teenagers is that today it's very difficult to be a teenager. Very, very difficult. And if you have a young person जो स्कूल जाता है, आता है वापस, थोड़ा बहुत होमवर्क भी कर लेता है, doesn't create a ruckus in your house, खेलने जाता है, you should count yourself as blessed. Because there are so many pressures for teenagers out there to do substances, to indulge in so many other things, whether it is, so even if they are chatting, the pressure to send inappropriate pictures is so high, right? Because everything happens right. It's called sexting, just by the way. So where you're chatting with somebody and they say, okay, what are you wearing? I'm sorry, it's very inappropriate language, but it's like, can you send a pic? And many teenage girls are very, very compelled, because what does a teenager want? They want attention, especially girls. So if a boy is giving me attention and he's asking for my pic, I will send it. Sometimes inappropriate pictures. And those things get viral. So as parents, I think first of all, we need to know what's happening. We need to know what they're reading, what they are listening to, the music. So the Korean group is very, very popular among teenagers.
Yes,
So
something new
we
which
need
I
to
have also
we need
heard.
to be aware, what are they listening to, what movies are they watching, what web series are they watching, because all of this is shaping their brain. So I feel, as a parent to a teenager, you have to be 10 steps ahead. You have to know what is in their environment. What is the fascination with Zara ka kapda? What is the fascination with that brand or this brand or other brand? Right? It's a pure thing and it's important to them. So when you say that, okay, I'm not going to do it, right? It hits at them, because how do I fit in then? Because a teenager at this stage only wants to fit in. I should not stick out like a sore thumb, right? And as parents, I think what we can do is, the main thing is to keep the communication going. And we can keep the communication going if we are able to, if we have a connection with our teenager. So they are not going to come home like, how when our kids came home from first standard or junior KG, senior KG, आज हमने ये किया, हमने painting किया, मैंने ये खाया, my friend said this. So even my 9-year-old will come home and say, today so and so said this and she shared that with me and he did this. Teenagers just become quiet because they feel, so they will do anything to avoid a lecture from a parent. The minute we start in that lecturing tone, they just switch off. Right? All we can do, I know it's a very, very helpless feeling, but we can talk to their teachers. Okay. We can see if our child is struggling. Many schools have counselors. Reach out to your school counselor. Then too, if the child doesn't want to go for counseling, you can't force them, right? But the school environment, who are the child's friends? So it's not like we just give them permission to do everything and anything. We have to have certain rules and regulations. Rules for screen time, rules for social media, so a simple rule you can say, be on social media, but no posting pictures. Or let me know what picture you're posting. Right? It's the summertime now. Kids will be out, bathing suits. Is it okay to post? What is your family values, your family culture? Right? So I'm not saying don't be on social media. I'm saying, what can you post? What can't you post? That much we need to be aware of, because
responsibility we have to give them is what you're trying to say.
Yes, we have to give them a choice. So I'm not saying don't be. I'm not saying don't be on Instagram, because that is a space where they all are. You forget about Facebook and all. Facebook is for people like you and me and our mothers and grandmothers.
Yes,
they are not on Facebook. They are all on Insta. Okay, and the thing is, anybody can message anybody, right? And kids are so that validation is so important for them. The likes, the you get the little hearts when you on Instagram.
Of course,
it is so important for them, for their self-esteem, that most of them are comparing. अरे तेरे 700 follower, मेरे 1000 follower है. That is the conversation, right? So we don't want to take away that completely from them, but we have to set up the boundaries.
Okay.
What is safe behavior in cyberspace? If I find something fishy online, do I know how to report the person or block the person? Right? And be wary. If you have, why would a 50-year-old person want to be friends with a teenager? There is no need. But sometimes they may have pictures. So predators are online now.
Really, yeah.
So how do we give our children the tools to figure it out? Right? If the person is not from my school or not from my area, I just don't add that person. Never mind you have fewer followers, but at least you are safe. Let's impress that upon children. Because we don't want pictures of our children circulating in cyberspace. Because what you have posted is posted. You can't take it down no matter what you do. Once it is in cyberspace, it's in cyberspace. And it's very easy for people to track down our children also.
Yeah, they put
so
up
we have to be
details
very
of where
careful.
they are and all those things.
Very careful telling them not to post the name of their school, their location, where they live. Some of them will give details about, oh, but I'm on the football team. This is my jersey number. You have given the predator exactly, details to who you are. So we have to make them aware of these things. But as parents, if we are not aware, हमने phone दिला दिया क्योंकि मस्ती कर रहे थे and insist कर रहे थे तो मैंने दिला दिया. But what is the repercussion of that? Even boys are not safe. So we need to, this sort of cyber safety has to be given to both girls and boys, right? So so that they are aware. But that means as parents, we need to be aware. It's not just about restricting our teenagers, right? But we have to give them a reason why. Why am I saying this? Right? And then consequences. If we are not able to, then please, parents, take away that phone for a little while. They will understand that it is a privilege to use the phone. Right? They will not be scarred for life. Thodi der ke liye le lo. Because getting addicted to phones and video games is a real thing. Okay? Where you can't do without it.
Absolutely. Actually, I mean, you have covered this social media part beautifully because, yes, we do end up giving the phone and it becomes a privilege for them. And it's a prestige issue sometimes. But how to do that? Parents first should be aware about it. We should be training them about it and help them understand it is for their benefit, their safety, and then allow this kind of a freedom. Very rightly put up. One thing that you mentioned while talking about teenage issues that they refuse to go to counselors, and it is usually a tendency in Indian families, is what we can say, that whenever we have any issues, we try to solve it within the family, or we try to approach a relative who is close to that child or a friend who is close to that child. So how do you think talking to a counselor is different than talking to a relative or somebody who is really close to you?
Leena, that's a very, very good question, because most families resort to, a nice masi or a nice bua or some elder cousin who will, talk to the child that is struggling. But, remember that, sometimes that works, many times it doesn't. When a child is really struggling, like if you're seeing depression in a child, I don't think a relative's pep talk or a shopping spree is going to help. And that is because psychologists are trained. We are trained to be able to, handle these sort of situations, assess these situations, know whether medication is needed, because sometimes therapy will not work until the child is put under medication or the teen is on medication if there is depression or a high level of anxiety with panic attacks and things like that. So I think that's where the difference comes in. And I think as consumers of mental health services, people must know the difference between clinical psychologist, counseling psychologist, psychiatrist, because this is your right. So, and a person who is trained will be able to tell you very, very quickly what is their level of training. Somebody who is a doctor, okay, obviously is very specialized in a certain field. A counseling psychologist will not prescribe medication to you. There's a lot of conversation that happens in counseling. A clinical psychologist is more trained to work with a psychiatrist because they are trying to pinpoint what is the pathology. That means, is there anxiety? Is there depression? What kind of depression? Is it bipolar? Is there more manic? Is it hypomania? Bipolar 1, bipolar 2? So a clinical psychologist spends a whole year just studying the manual of disorders. Okay, a psychiatrist will help you to calm your um, clinical issues with medication. Okay, because in many cases medication is needed. Now the tendency is, because they are doctors, the tendency is to go directly to a psychiatrist. While that is not entirely incorrect, because a psychiatrist will put you on medication. But I always feel that it's better to have a conversation first. Let a counseling psychologist or a clinical psychologist or whatever psychologist assess you, have a conversation with you. And sometimes what happens, the symptoms go down. The symptoms go down. And the person is able to cope, right? And may not need medication so soon. Right? So a short assessment, 1 or 2 appointments, and if medication is needed, the counselor will always refer.
Any closing remarks that you would like to provide to the parents?
Yes, definitely. So, all of us have a GP, when we have our cough, our cold, our aches and pains, we go to our doctor. There's coming a time where we all need to have our therapist, a family therapist, somebody we can go to, take our children to, should there be a concern. So I feel, we need to normalize mental health. We don't have to make fun of children when they say, I need to see a counselor. अरे तुम्हें counselor की जरूरत नहीं है, मुझसे बात करो. But sometimes आप ही problem हो. उनका आपके साथ ही नहीं जम रहा है, but we are not able to see it. So when your child is saying, I need to see a professional, please honor that and take them to a specialist who can help your child, because I feel most cases get destroyed because parents delay because of their own ego. I'm sorry to say this, but it's like we are in denial. हमारे बच्चे को कैसे हो सकता है ये? But when we open the newspapers and we read of children taking their own lives, it hits us at that point in time. कि शायद depression था, शायद anxiety थी, maybe there were gender identity issues, like a child struggling with their sexuality. And sometimes just a conversation with a professional can be life-saving. That is my message. Normalize going to a professional.
Thank you so much for this elaborate discussion.
Most welcome.
Because this is much needed. Emotional health is important. Rather, sometimes it is more important than being physically okay. So I would request parents to look after your children, identify if there are any issues, and do seek help if it is really needed. Talk to the consultants, talk to the psychologists, and support your children to the level best. Thank you so much. We would be sharing details of Ms. Desire Diaz in case any of you is interested in further discussion with her. So do subscribe to GenX Parenting for more such informative videos and share your feedback in the comment section. Thank you.